Yeah, so today I want to kind of jump from culture in the implicit notion. So if you have done the survey, you may have realized that culture is as well preferences for certain interaction in a team. And I gave you the strange example of perceived Swedish culture. I'm again going over and I will confront I have a new colleague in Sweden that I'm working with, and she's Swedish. And yeah, this is always exciting. If you have new colleagues, you kind of can see where their cultural competences are. Are they quite dominant? Now, with that comes as well preferences for leadership styles. And this was actually a project that I got from the Dutch Ministry of Infrastructure. Yeah, so they approached us on a conference. Well, I went to a congress and talked about culture and leadership. And they said, like, this is a hot topic. If I had a student that could work on that, they would really like to accommodate them and work on a few big mega projects of the ministry. Yeah? So they built a new airport, a new metro, stuff like this. So basically, this was what the student researched. And this research is really based on Anouk's. So this is a past student that wrote her MSc dissertation on that topic. And this is kind of the data that we had to this. So that concluded her dissertation. And what was interesting is she found that there's a lot of good practice going on in England. So she left the Dutch company and works now for a British contractor, which is quite interesting. Yeah? So, yeah. But anyway, here's a study, or a little bit the scene setting as well. Yeah, so project leadership across generation, that was kind of the theory. That different generations have different leadership and cultural expectations. So the worst case example, no, not worst, but to polarize that, the assumption was that older generations do like a good drill when it runs firm, short answers, and quick. And you start at 9, you go home at 5. So those were like some of the assumptions that come out initially. But then there was as well the question: well, is there a new generation that prefers a different style, or is it actually generation specific at all? This was a big question. And we looked as well in terms of different theorems, but I talked you through it. So so we look here at in cultural theorems at generational diversity versus project leadership within infrastructure projects, and the data, to be very specific, is actually largely based on Netherlands or Dutch companies. So we have kept it kind of regional, but if you read the literature, you will see it's not just specific to Netherlands, it's as well generalizable to a lot of other sectors. Now, to start us off, I thought a little picture will do. So the leader basically says the orienteering course instructions will get you over here. And of course, the little fellow of this particular scout leader says, my GPS told me the short way to get here. Okay, not funny, yeah. And the bird sings, welcome to the generation gap. Okay, let it resonate, it may generate a smile. Yeah? So to set a little bit this kind of the theme, I go again here with the Association for Project Management quote: project leadership itself, yeah, is the role of a leader. The role of leadership is in a project is to promote the project objectives, encourage positive relationships, support effective teamwork, raise morale. So this is as well part of your role, yeah, as a project manager or leader, and empower and inspire individuals. Do you buy into that? What do you think? Is that good? Critical views? What do you think? We can as well jump straight to the discussion point. So, is there a relationship between project management and project leadership? Should the leader be the project manager, or other way around? Should a project manager be a leader by definition? So, what do you think? Yeah.
Absolutely. He owns the project. He should lead from the front.
Okay, so one example, lead from the front. What about your experience?
I think you can have a leader in charge of getting something sorted and not get bogged down with financial matters, which could be left to a project manager.
Right, not micromanage. You would disseminate work and other responsibilities, but you need to lead the project overall.
I suppose we will have here the definition as well, kind of as a teaser. Yeah? I mean, this is of course, so this is kind of what was agreed at the Association for Project Management. There was a very heated debate around this. So it was perceived this is maybe not appropriate. Here's a quick question. So we have as well in many companies terms like team leader, project manager, and maybe project director. Is that all the same? Who's the leader there? It's difficult, isn't it?
I don't think a lot of the construction companies actually use a project manager. They tend to do it without. They used to do without them. If we did have project managers, when I've seen them on sites, and a couple that would be made up. If a site manager was going to leave, they'd be made a project manager, but would still be a site manager. So we didn't tend to use them. So the site managers were left to get on with it and deal with everything themselves.
Okay, but implicitly you're saying as well that the site manager kind of took this team leadership role on site. Yeah. So and he harvests it to promote like kind of the project objectives and encourage positive relationships, support effective.
Well, I would say that was the way forward, but it's not the way I was used to. That's all. The old school wouldn't have worked that way. It was dogmatic, if you like.
I think the old site manager wasn't as concerned again with the finance side, getting it built, whereas they kind of moved that role to be a construction manager, and then brought a project manager in to sort of have an overview of everything.
That's the idea. But from my experience, they used to go from the site manager to the contracts manager or a construction director. They didn't see the need for a project manager because the site manager did it. You know, you had to be able to take offs and everything on site once the site had kicked off. So the site manager never really got to experience the contracts manager's roles, which was where the divide was. So what understand what they had to do, and they didn't necessarily understand what you were to do, which is when if you were to meet on site, that's when differences came in, arguments came in, because you didn't understand each other's role. Yeah. So a contracts manager wouldn't necessarily have been a site manager before.
Yes. So very good example. Where does then the leadership role in a project manager that kind of manages from afar with the contract and reliabilities? Where does the team leadership then sit?
Sometimes there isn't anything. Probably that's why I put in a weak culture in the organisation of yours.
Where would you expect it then, the team leadership, if you subcontract to a company?
The leadership, from my experience, would be from the site manager, because he would be the one that works with them every day, sees them every day on site. Okay. But it was strange because the culture was different. Because if somebody, they're saying that it's best to have a team that works well together. That isn't the way they used to work. It used to be a case of best price. So it wasn't necessarily the easiest person to work with, but you still just had to get on with it. Now, I was giving the example the last time of the forklift driver that knocked the timber frame bungalows over, but he was still there because he thought, he knew so many people and.
So there were other power theorems and a culture that allowed that. That accommodated for this, and you are very likely to find a very similar environment.
Also, think that the management team are responsible for getting the project built, as Phil said. In my own experience, the leadership team then has a more longer term, more conceptual view of what's going on. So they're looking at the bigger whole picture, where possibly the management team are concentrating on, the more weekly, monthly project itself.
The small things.
Yeah. A lot of the time you're kept in the dark as well for any I'm trying to think, any programs that were set up, you know, like considerate constructors you weren't informed of why you had to do it. It was something you had to do. So nobody knew why they were doing it. Nobody understood why you were putting plant boxes outside the site office. Or having a pedal bike in the office to save somebody going to the shop on the break time on their bike saving, you know, to save fuel and the environment. So people they're kept in the dark. They're told to do it, but it's not explained why you have to do it.
So this is a very interesting example, and that is quite common actually in construction. And I would say here, especially if you manage it from a contractor point, if you are very literal, you're contracting the activities out. You are assuming that companies come with their own team leaders. That they are motivated to do it themselves, their package. Yeah, and as a project manager, you just look at the interfaces. So you kind of manage the different teams that they're accountable for integrating it soundly. And I suppose this is where your site manager came in and took the leadership role, because he knew that he would be otherwise having another extra week of work if that would backfire, and the teams would be back on site.
And that kind of explains why site managers work that way as well, because they will work with difficult people.
Yeah.
So it's obviously that they did what worked best for them, whereas they weren't introduced for the you know, what they could give to the team. It was different.
If you're interested in a wonderful case that is beautifully illustrated at the moment, I watched that yesterday quite late, so I don't really recall the full narrative or the names, but there is a Storyville documentation on BBC iPlayer at the moment on a pretty large city in China, and when I say large, it's around, I think, 10 million or so. Yeah, that would be straight away here another major capital next to London. The mayor was kind of managing a mega project to kind of highlight the cultural artifacts of the past dynasties that were in this particular city, to make it an attractive city for tourism. And it's on BBC iPlayer. Yeah, and it goes through the construction motions. They have to demolish a lot of wildly built houses, and it brings the whole dynamics out of stakeholders. Leadership comes there, and it's a little bit as well what you were saying. It's actually the mayor himself that kind of leads it up front. He does bring as well he has many main contractors. Some do their own deals. They build with different materials, and he kind of becomes a construction expert as well. It's very interesting to see the accountabilities. So he is actually, he's doing that actually for a mega project, yeah, of just 10 billion US dollar. Yeah, this is what he's looking after, and it's filmed over 5 years. Wonderful documentation. Sadly, all in subtitles. Unless you speak fluent Mandarin, then you will be fine. Yeah, but I'm not fully there, so I had to go with the subtitles. But wonderful documentation. And it shows that in some sites you still have this accountability at a senior level, where you are actually the leader as a manager. Yeah? And he has to be that leader as well. He has to motivate people for... so there's a lot going wrong. I don't want to disturb the example too much, or don't want to destroy the documentation for you. But have a look. It really raises the other side, and it shows as well how the contractors kind of bid it in and have a lot of additional charges, because basically it wasn't priced properly. But still, the accountability and project leadership as well sits actually at the mayor's hand. So it's a very fascinating example, and you can see how this as well has a lot to do with raising morale, yeah, of the people as well. The government, so he sits on the interface to the construction of the project, but at the same time accountable to the government. So he has to make as well the justifications for finance, what you mentioned earlier. Yeah, so justifying the budget, and at the same time presenting kind of the achievements that they have done. Yeah? So that is really kind of a wonderful example for this. But again, we had already the examples. So often, not necessarily the case. Yeah? Maybe you want to reflect as well on that. And think about this. Do I have to be, as a project manager, as well as a leader? Yeah?
That's what's happening in Korea at the minute. South Korea. And news at the minute.
Sorry, I'm not...
The news at the minute because of the way the emperor relaxed in their countries, like emperors. That lady who got diverted the plane back, her daughter.
Okay.
Was happy with the way the nuts was the story. Which is the daughter of the airline's owner, which has been put, what was it? Anti-terrorism law, wasn't it?
Been threatened with 3 years in prison.
Yeah. Because the way they run the companies in Korea,
Yeah.
I mean, was it Hyundai's bought this big plot of land to build this red herring? So the way that they run business in South Korea, just started the same. They run them like mini empires.
Yeah, good, but I suppose this is quite common. So in large companies, you have very quickly a tendency to kind of become so influential at a certain size, where you kind of can as well, you recognize the power because the government asked you for your advice how things are running. And this is a common tradition. This is when conglomerates are built. This is not just South Korea. But it's an interesting example.
Just on the news this morning.
Yeah. So, and this is probably with a negative taint, that they are so powerful that they're influencing directly into people's day-to-day life. Yeah. Okay. Let's look a little bit further. So, there were as well, of course, well, the study itself focused on current leadership theories. Yeah, project management tools are not sufficient to conform to the needs of future group of managers. So this is still a call, by the way. If you're interested in this topic of leadership, there are a lot of leadership academies, and this reminds me. Sorry, we are, leadership was my keyword. For the conference, sorry, I jumped your topics. We are back at this in a second, but I will otherwise probably forget it. We have a conference coming just before the week of Easter. Now we have kind of two big themes. One theme is watch a mega construction project. It's a cross-railing, basically. Yeah? So go to different sites and then have a conference kind of from the people that work on the site, project managers, program managers, to tell us a little bit the in and outs, and we have a discussion on that and stay over there and have a lovely dinner as well with them. This is option number one. Option number two is summarized. It has to do with a current trend of project managers, especially when they come in on big projects, being coached. Yeah? So coaching and project management to do the job well has become a big topic. Now, I have a dear friend that is a director in VW for the project management office, and he runs a session here, and he would really like to do this as well with us for the conference, and look at team working dynamics, how you build a sufficient team, and different strategies from a project manager's perspective, coaching, and this is hands-on. So we will actually go into the Lake District, do a few team building exercises, and then we have again on the following day staying over in a lovely spa at the Lake District, and then on the following day we have like a morning conference where they kind of present their perspectives, what works, what issues they have across the groups. So this is VW is everything from VW cars, Audi, Porsche, you name it. They all sit. Sorry, this was just German brands. Who else is there? Bugatti.
Volkswagen.
Which one?
Bugatti's Volkswagen.
Yeah, Bugatti as well. Oh yeah, sorry. Volkswagen is VW. Yeah, and which other groups are in there? Well, there are a lot of international ones too. Bentley. Yeah, exactly. Something else?
Ferrari, Lamborghini, but Lamborghini is Dutch.
Okay. Yeah, but
also Lamborghini is German also now.
Yeah. So, but the idea is to look basically at different. So you notice already that there may be cultural differences. We come to that as well, and it's to kind of understand as a leader what is needed from you to kind of build a team that works functionally. So this is the alternative. So one is the Crossrail mega project. The other one kind of like competencies and kind of attributes of building your team sufficiently. What would be better? What do you favor? Option 2. Okay. So I didn't hear the both?
Yeah,
both in that order, yeah? Okay. No, this is not a possibility. We can just do one. I mean, from my point, we can do all, but it's you guys that need to have the. So it's kind of 2 days. We can do 4 days, and this, if you don't mind.
What's it yet?
Last week of our teaching. So this is the week before. Did you want the date? Wait a minute. I think it's a week of the 16th. So it will be Tuesday evening leaving and coming back Thursday evening.
Tuesday the
17th?
of
What?
March, April.
Is that March?
March. Before spring break.
Yeah. So it's the last week before spring break. Yeah. And it's 2 days. So far I have only one opinion.
With our in cars or bus. Or
No, sorry, we do it all. You turn up Tuesday evening, we basically do it all. And we bring you back Thursday evening. Everything else is inclusive in between.
How many people that get told this from work?
There will be some further explanation of how it works.
Yes.
We receive an email.
I mean, at the moment, it's the rough pitches. One is basically doing the event with a major project association, so that would be probably more formal. And the Lake District is kind of team building. So there's as well, you have as well free time to use the smart. It's about team building as well. So there's as well networking, and we normally invite as well past alumni students that kind of work in project management, so you can network for future, or if you want to find out about companies. And the major project association, they kind of have the agenda of Crossrail, and they look at the moment at capacity building, but I don't think that will be particularly interesting for project management. Hence, we look probably at other dynamics. But that would be around London. There are some implications. So the bus ride from here to London is of course further than from here to the Lake District. But I mean, it's a minimal effort. So the Crossrail would be kind of side viewing, so we travel quite a bit, whilst in the Lake District you would be there and kind of follow through the activities, and it's all around there. So I think one of the stuff was orientation hiking, so there's actually quite intense stuff involved in it. Yeah, but I mean, you can pick. It's a different program, and yeah.
Okay.
What's the idea? Is this either or we're talking about?
Yeah, it's an either or.
Right.
Is the last week not the 24th?
Wait a minute.
No, it's a week before.
We're getting an extension of 2 years. One for our assignment.
You will be done by that point with your assignment.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So the deadline for hand in is actually the week before. So you are safe then. You will be released of having done. Any preferences? Teamwork or dynamics of mega projects? I think complexity is a classic one. Yeah? So to look at the organizational complexity and like different styles of dealing with it. I think that's normally quite interesting.
Depends on your time off work.
Well, which one would be your preference?
Probably team building leadership. That would be good.
Okay. From the other team, from the students that study the generic part, they favor as well the team building one so far. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Probably that one.
Okay. I keep it in the back of my mind, but then I will probably ask as well the BIM students tomorrow.
Do you have an itinerary you could email or not?
No, I don't have that yet.
Turn up Tuesday.
I have a lot of so I will book it tomorrow, and then tomorrow evening I can book you the detail, tell you the details. Yeah. So
What's the cost?
nothing.
No, free.
We probably ask for something that you put a deposit down when you commit your life away to this of £20, but you get it back in the bus when you turn up. Yeah. It's like your pocket money for the trip that you get back in the bus. Yeah. So yeah.
Is it critical for your finance?
Does the university cover the bar bill?
The bar bill. No, I mean we don't encourage anything like this, but all the costs are covered.
So we'll run the bar bill.
It's a package deal. It's a package deal. Yeah.
Get some back.
I'll ask him what I teach Wednesday, but Thursday we're here, so
Yeah.
maybe we'll do.
I mean, with something like the Lake District, you may be able to come as well, but Wednesday is kind of the activity day. So this is really kind of the where you get shown techniques. And I mean, you do it with activities, but they explain the principles behind it. So it's really good stuff, actually. Yeah. And yeah, so VW runs it actually for the kind of global group. So they come from all over the world. So this is it should be really interesting as well.
Would you be able to travel over Wednesday morning?
Yeah, I mean, the idea, no, I should be very clear on this.
Oh,
so
okay,
you arrive on Tuesday evening, and we collect you with a bus, drive you over to a wonderful dinner
right,
in the hall, yeah.
I got you.
But I mean, I will cycle over, so if anybody is up for that, with a road bike, it's just 6 hours, so it's not too bad. If you're up for that. But we can meet at 10 already on Tuesday.
We have to lose good get stone.
Again, did you get it?
So if you like cycling, if you're a committed cyclist, then we can meet on Tuesday around 10 a.m. and
Go
then
there by bike?
yeah, cycle over to the Lake District.
Nice.
Yeah,
I
I want to do this. Yeah,
6 hours.
yeah, it's okay. With a break, with a
But
lunch
then
break.
you bike. I have a nice bike. You can rent? I can rent?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, you would have to pay for that. I cannot cover that.
And so we should leave and come back on Thursday.
Yeah, so Thursday evening you are back, so around 7 o'clock in the evening. Yeah. But again, so if you are committing to one, I can book it and then you get the itinerary. Does that make sense? So you get the program and then you can commit to it. You don't have to commit now. I just want to hear what the preferences are. Yeah, and then I give you the detailed program, so you can actually.
We're not getting lectures on Thursday. Is it finished then? Is it?
There will be lectures on Thursday. Yeah. So Thursday morning we have a talk.
Do you mean here?
Yeah.
Here? No.
No.
Are we finished then? Are we?
There is
No. Sorry, there are lectures after Easter.
Also, we'll finish on that. We'll finish on that 12th. That's just done, is it?
Yeah,
Is
this
it?
week,
Alright.
this week of the conference there will be no lecture.
Alright.
Okay, a lot of other
we
questions.
should come back with the bike also.
Yeah, this is the idea.
So we should just leave Thursday morning. Missing something from the.
No, we do the conference, but we miss out on the spa and you know, afterwards they can go for walking, but then you would go for cycling instead.
Nice.
So set off around 2 p.m. so we arrive as well at 7 or something. But that way you are riding actually, so it takes longer there aspect because you are cycling up like steep, so it's like this, you know, the mountains are all like this from coming from the other side, so cycling there takes longer.
Takes longer.
Yeah, because you have very steep hills down, so steep climbs normally don't take that long. Whereas you can cycle very fast on the long way, actually.
Oh, we can talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, if you are up for that, I will write it as well as a post if you are interested in this. If you haven't done it before, you should practice. Yeah, this is important. Otherwise, it's something like 160 kilometers, 100 miles. Yeah, so it's quite intense if you haven't done it before. Yeah. But yeah, if you are interested in this. Yeah. Some people smile. Yeah. Do you? No, not interested. Okay. Okay, but this is good. So team management is preferred. Then I post the itinerary. I have to just ask the BIN group as well, so this I can do later on. And then, so I mean, you have one then already because it's 2 groups that want to kind of go for the team building. Yeah, so then we go for that. So that is Lake District. It's a wonderful hall as well. It's like on a lake, very picturesque. That's just wonderful. You will come back as a relaxed person, full of energy, and that's wonderful. And made a lot of friends, close ties.
Employed by books.
Yeah, this is the alternative, with the alternative opportunity to start afterwards at Volkswagen. Yeah, or MAN is another one, and the big universities use it too. So Manchester and UCL have used it as well. They're there as well in there. No? But okay, there you go. Okay. Any other questions to this? Okay, sorry, I took you on a detour there. back to our question: do we have a generation gap? Yeah. So this is a big theory. This is another hypothesis. Yeah. So there is this belief, and you may buy into this. You may believe that a younger generation prefers a different style of management than maybe an older generation, whatever that may mean. Yeah. So that may mean that there is a difference, yeah, based on age. So we can test that. That is basically what Anoop did. So current leadership theories and project management tools are not sufficient to conform the needs of future group of managers. So we see that in teams that perform in high-performing and productivity environments, that they get upset, depending just on the manager, like saying something in a certain tone. Yeah? So the team is like, no, okay, I had it. You described the example where the site manager didn't ask the person that came for the job the right way to do a job, yeah, to hang a door, and the guy walked off the site. This is basically the problem. I mean, not walking off of not hanging the door, but the team dynamics. Yeah. So based on leadership or communication style, behavior as a leader, yeah, you will maybe encourage or disencourage your team. This is important stuff. Yeah. So we have to figure this out. Then there's as well distance between the perception of all that younger generations hold high sensitivity for conflict. So you may perceive the interaction appropriate or not, and respectively your team may go into conflict mode. Hey, why are you talking to me that way? Yeah, or something like that. So this is aggressive cultures. So British and German culture, German is barbarians. So apparently we are very conflictual. Yeah? So if I'm too conflictual, you have to say, hey Robert, drive a little bit your German culture style down, yeah? Or something like that. Yeah? But so there's a big question behind it. Yeah? So question, general gap or not? So the aim really expand project leadership theory by creating an understanding in the impact of generation and diversity of project leadership. So this would be such a question that you could investigate. So very cool stuff. And then there was as well actually a white paper on this. So this is still minding the gap, closing the generation divide in project management. We could actually show that there's no such thing. So PMI got it wrong. This is cool stuff. We did the study and said like, hey, what are you talking about? There's no evidence. Get a better question. So this is what we said. Something like that.
Not a lot of that to do with technological answers though.
Yes. Wow, you have a good. Now you have already a refined theory. Yeah, you have the right theory. So this is actually true.
We've always done it this way. Why change? Is the attitude you get from the older generation sometimes.
Yeah, but no, you have already. This is not older or younger generation. We have actually different preferences based on the platform that we use for communication. Yeah, so I communicate a lot with emails, and my older colleague comes always flying into my office. Where's Robert? He's again not there. He's teaching. Yeah, so then it's okay. But then, yeah, so there is a difference in preferences of how we communicate. Yeah, and again, it has not to do really with age. Yeah, it has to do with how you use different technologies for communication. So those are actually the indicators that are really dominant. So we see, for example, Claudio is relatively old, but he is actually a lot more firm with communication technologies than me. I would belong to the older generation. When he sends me HTML coding, I'm just like, I give it a go, and then you see the web page like moving like a labyrinth. You know that I have done something wrong. So this is quite tricky. Okay, now what we used to look at a lot is the traits theory. What have you heard about traits? What does that tell you? Who are those people?
Steve Jobs.
Who?
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs.
Right. Now. Yeah.
Okay. So what is the what is his trait, or why do you think he is on this? Or what do you know him for? Sorry, maybe let's start a step. So who is Steve Jobs?
Former CEO for a guy.
Yeah, CEO of what? Apple? Yeah, exactly. So this is a big company that does Apple Macs, so the laptops and computers. I think they don't like computer, but the term. But anyway, and the iPhone as well, iPod, you name it. Yeah, that's them.
So now we're just pioneers. These guys.
So he's a pioneer. Yeah.
All of these are pioneers, set the ball rolling. They all started something up. Or heroes.
His personal traits, he was a perfectionist and extremely driven.
So very driven, yeah. He was a driven businessman, yeah. And he brought, as you said, innovative technologies together, yeah, and was a natural leader. He got in a position of being a market leader, yeah? So quite impressive. Company-wise, yeah, you would say he shows traits of a natural leader, yeah, leadership traits.
Difficult to work for them.
Yeah, why is that?
Sort of very, not so much dictatorial, but very autocratic, where it was like, this is the way I wanted, and that's the way it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Which was his perfectionist of making sure the product is as good as it could possibly be.
Yeah.
Which would stand Apple well in the marketplace.
Now, the psychology traits were actually bipolar for Steve Jobs. Does anybody know what that stands for? Bipolar, what is this?
Two extremes.
Yeah, and what two extremes could that be, bipolar? It's when you have already said it. So your personality shows itself in extremes. Yeah? So he was very loud, yeah, authoritative about perfectionizing, but at the same time he was very calm and quiet. And it came as a surprise. Yeah, you didn't see that coming. Yeah. Actually, this is as well true for this person, but we haven't got the name yet. Yeah. But I think now we were in places, but yeah, what was the name?
Richard Branson.
Richard Branson. Yeah.
Mr. Virgin.
Yeah, Virgin. Yeah. And what is his trait?
Napoleon.
Pardon?
First one. No.
Oh, here. Yeah, it's true. How did you know? All his pictures are always with his hand like this, so that's
I think for Richard, it was someone that is like very focused on what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
Like the last incident they had about the spaceship they sent to
Virgin Galaxy. Yeah.
and ended up blowing up or something. He still said they're going to try it once again, and he once took an hot-air balloon across the Atlantic Ocean or something. Yeah, it crashed, but he did it again. So he's someone that is very focused and goes for his goal.
Yeah. So arguably another natural leader, yeah, and as well same with Napoleon. And who is this? Gandhi, yeah. And what is he famous for?
The attractive only with the peace and not with the war. One of the first peace philosophy.
Peaceful, what?
Peaceful philosophies.
Peaceful philosophy.
Yeah.
Philosophy is normally peaceful, but so what was his trait? Did he have as well a big conglomerate of companies?
He was a leader.
Give people belief.
Yeah. So he was kind of a social entrepreneur. At least this is the attempt of bringing this in the picture here. Yeah, and he was able to kind of as well lead and inspire people. Yeah. But based on you said it on a philosophy, yeah, on an idea, yeah, and he promised as well like a change to the better, yeah. So this is another trait that all of them probably share. Who is this?
Christopher Reeve.
No.
That's a character. That's a character.
Who is that?
That's a character. Superman.
Superman, yeah. And why was he a leader? Is he a leader?
More a hero, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's an idol. Yeah, and what I still like about why I picked Superman is still the old chestnut, because he's the only superhero that has to disguise between the normal people. This is quite interesting. Whereas the other ones do it the other way around. Does that make sense? You know, Batman, to become the superhero, he kind of puts a mask on. Yeah, but this goes deep. Yeah? So again, a natural leader, yeah, and but because he doesn't want to run the government of the, I think United States is the origin of the story. He kind of puts a coat on and goes incognito, to not lead by default. So the whole, basically take Obama's job by default, or something like that. Yeah, this was not his intent. So who is this?
Mandela.
Yeah, and what is Nelson Mandela famous for?
And reporter.
For the rights, for the rights of black people in South Africa.
Yeah, end of apartheid, but then he was the first elected president. And he was as well able to motivate a lot, well, a whole nation really. Yeah. So he was another leader that just inspired people. Yeah, and arguably they all share that. Their traits is that they can inspire people around them to join them on the endeavor that they have, on the project that they are striving towards. So this is associated with the trait theory. That's a very rich body, if you're interested in that. This is still, traits theory has a dark history. What is kind of assumed in the traits history? Does anybody know?
Leaders are born with me.
Pardon? Yeah.
The leaders are born.
Yeah.
Me.
Leaders are born. So there's a, and we I think as a theory as well in here, there's another one that's even more specific like that. But it's a traits are kind of accustomed to you being born that way. Yeah. But again, there's a notion of great men are not perfect. As you can see, Superman is quite scared of the pistachio ice cream. Oh, of course, yeah. Did you know what that was? Kryptonite, yeah. Oh, sorry, I'm going in the wrong direction. Yeah. So kryptonite scares Superman. Yeah. So not all are perfect, and this is the idea. Yeah. The theory works, but it normally dictates as well. So you have then already the recruitment of your fellowship, maybe as well quite ejectory. So people may not want to work for you because you are too dominant. That is a big problem for all these leaders as well. Yeah. Now, leadership has really changed through the ages, and more popular transformational leadership style came kind of from situational leadership. That situational aspects influence leadership effectiveness, and this is very interesting for us in a project. Yeah, you may not know your team in a lot of detail. You just may work on a project with them. And Hersey and Blanchard were the first that came really up with this. They kind of proposed that there is a notion of adapting to your followers. Yeah, so you have a team that are in a different level of readiness to respond to you. So and depending on that, you have to employ a different character trait as a leader. So they suggest the most simple one is when you have low supportive environment, you haven't known them, you just turned up on site, yeah, and low directive behavior, they don't yet follow you, yeah, so they don't even know you are the project leader, then a good starting point is to delegate as a leader. You delegate what has to be done. You delegate tasks, roles up front. Yeah? Then if you have high supportive and low directive behavior, so they're kind of there, but at the same time you say, hey, bring the bin out, and they're like, oh, bin really? Who, me or him? Or then you should be more supporting. You should say, come, now take the bin, and it will be fine. Yeah? And then it goes on to coaching. Yeah? This is when you have high directive and high supportive behavior. You say, bring the bin out. Oh, I know where the bin is. I do it. This is wonderful. Then you can kind of coach. Yeah? Oh, you've been bringing out. You should not wave so much, otherwise the coffee pot is all over the kitchen, yeah, or something like that. Yeah? So you can kind of coach. And then again, you have high directive but low supportive behavior. Yeah? So you may have somebody like, no, I don't want to bring the bin out. Yeah? Then you have directing as a leadership style. This was extremely simplified, by the way. Yeah, but this is the idea. Yeah? Depending on the situation that you face, you adapt your response as a leader. What do you think about that? Good idea? Mm-hmm. Yes, good idea. Yeah, so you build the relationship then.
Get to know your people. You've got to know your people. You've got to know your people who you're working with, how to interact with them. Because everyone's different.
Okay, you say forget about the theory. It's better to get to know somebody and see what their response is.
Everyone's different. Yeah. It's diverse.
It won't work with everybody.
One doesn't fit all.
So in reality, you can actually play that out. This is a wonderful theory as well to test. And you will see that there are logical gaps. You for example, take from your team the opportunity to pick up issues themselves. This is very implicit. So you are basically on this leadership role. So this is again a theory, very powerful, but again, it can have certain issues. The biggest issue is actually that it imposes like kind of a high directive element to a low laissez-faire, but you don't actually arrive here. So the argument is that, can anybody explain that to me? What is that? High and low participative? What does that mean?
Participate involved in the.
Yeah. So if everybody is in on the project and they know what we are trying to achieve, they may actually work for themselves. They are able to do the micro decisions themselves. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you may not be needed that much as a leader. Yeah.
So if you've got a big crowd to look after, or a big group to look after, you empower some people to be mini leaders in themselves. Mm-hmm. So it takes some of the work off yourself and some of the pressure.
Also, you create team leaders. Yeah, this is
without them doing it themselves.
Yeah,
you can do that. That's getting to know your people, though.
Yeah, yeah. You are then picking as well, kind of, who may have already kind of the legitimization in the team. Yeah. Then we have as well in the 90s. This came afterwards from Buzz, transformation leadership theory. Develop a vision, develop trust, be an inspiration, and motivate. This is kind of what they are suggesting. And what's quite interesting is they kind of mirror that against a style that is very common for us. And if we look into that in the next week's session, when we look at virtual teams and team dynamics, we will actually go a little bit into dominant styles in project environments. So transformational is relationship oriented. We kind of try to work on improving our behavior within our role, and we need feedback for that to kind of collaborate. Versus transaction based one. Transactional leadership style is task oriented, most often used in PM. You do that task. Do you have the outcome? Yes, we do. Okay, well done. Yeah. So it's as well a way of doing it. Yeah. And then transaction costs may be one. Yeah? You may have the cheapest bidding, but it's painful to manage, so you may have a good site manager that you put in place to look that they actually do the right thing. Yeah? Now, more presently or more currently, we had as well a strong look at emotional intelligence. We had that already in the previous session. So here it was really the recognition of being a good leader depends on the adequate emotional response or having emotional intelligence instead of intellectual intelligence. This came, Goldman was one that kind of repeated it in a coherent way. This was kind of an emergent theme, kind of from the 60s already, to when it became actually management literature in 1990. Yeah, and what is quite interesting here is that you kind of have a self-analysis. So emotional intelligence has a lot to do with realizing what your emotions are, separating this from the outcomes you are after in your project, and then using your emotions as well as a support mechanism. So you notice as well the emotions from the other one, you realize what your effect is, and the top level is using your emotions basically for authentic responses. To steer really the project in the direction you are after. But the first level is actually about self-realization. Well, when do I actually kind of judge the situation more emotionally rather than rationally? So this was maybe a good outcome, but I don't like the way how he did it, and he hasn't even reported to me. What's going on there? But in reality, it was maybe something else. Your project cabin, the roof is leaking, and your laptop doesn't work anymore. So you may be emotionally charged, and you're looking in reality for a relief. So this has a lot to do as well with self-awareness. Very, very powerful concept. Now the problem with emotional intelligence is you have to work with people to actually arrive at an understanding how to work it. So this is getting to know each other, figuring out how you can work together. Yeah? This is the iceberg example. So IQ, you can see this is a rational way of doing it. They may not respond, and it may need emotional kind of authentication. That you are basically bringing it across authentically as well. Yeah. Now, the newer theorems are quite interesting. So here we have two different ones. One is the authentic leadership, focus upon authenticity, acting conform the person that you are. So really becoming self-conscious. How do I lead? How do I actually respond if something doesn't work? I don't inhabit that, but kind of nurtured in a way that it's proactive. Yeah? Again, this is normally a style that if you try to do that by yourself, it's very, very difficult. You need a coach, or you need to take note what works, what doesn't. Otherwise, this can go sideways very quickly. I mean, there are a lot of examples where this goes sideways. The other one is actually on the other side. So this is still leading from the front. The other style that is currently very art en vogue is kind of a philosophy. It's a servant leadership style, really developed by Robert K. Greenleaf. And we have here as well one of the leadership academies in our business school. So here it's leaders should put needs of others above their own. So it's always the question is, how can I make you perform your job better? How do you how is it easier for you to see what you're actually contributing in this project to? So you basically try to really empower and enable your team members to contribute to their best possible skill and attitude and aptitude to the project. So here the leader should provide resources and support followers to develop their competences to carry out their work. So this is particularly interesting because we recognize already in the UK and many countries, we start professionalizing everything. So this is kind of the responding leadership style that should be adapted. So you have professionals that may still be in their development and may not be fit for your project. Then you should flex that up and say like, hey, they need further training or coaching on their aspect. So this is how I do. It supports a proactive approach instead of learning on unique traits. So this is as well kind of creating the social awareness. And servant leadership model is shared leadership. So you enable to lead by expertise, by role responsibility. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Yeah, so for example, if it comes down to the I don't know why I'm picking on the structural design, but if you have designed it and you're not sure, will this building actually be sound to be built, you shouldn't even make the decision if you're the architect or project manager. Ask the structural engineer. And if he says like, this is a sound building, this is a decision, full stop. So you basically delegate, you empower for role responsibility to take the leadership and basically bring it in. You may have another expert, the architect, that says, oh, I don't want the beam in the middle of the corridor. Come on, put it in the wall. Then you have to negotiate this. Does that make sense? Yeah, but still, the information would then come again from the leading role. Yeah. So with this, you have shared leadership, while you people, develop people, build community, display authenticity, and provide leadership, of course. Yeah. Interesting? Did you like it? Now this is of course quite confronting. Those are kind of on different scales. But this is art en vogue. If you open now the new leadership books, this is kind of since 2012 we are talking about that since 2011. Yeah. Now with cultural diversity, any questions so far to leaderships? Shall we have a short break? 10 minutes. I have talked too much. I noticed this. This is not good. Okay, let's have 10 minutes. Is that okay? Okay. So 2:22 back again. Yeah. Why is it? Okay, so fair enough. Okay, so this is kind of the leadership side, but any leader needs a fellowship. Yeah, otherwise you are just a lonely person, like talking to yourself. Or yeah, so it's in other words, we need a little bit as well team. So one way of doing this to look at cultural diversity and become a little bit more aware of different concepts is the globe. So this is really a large survey that was kind of conducted in the last 10 years, and they look kind of at larger companies and have analyzed if there are some trends in preferred leadership styles and respectively as well team management, kind of perceived management styles. Yeah? So this was done both leadership roles and the team that was kind of being led, and it brought out certain elements. So this included managers from 62 nations. The strength really of this particular research piece was expanded Hofstede's 5-dimension of cultural framework into 9 dimensions. So it's a more refined view, but we cover Hofstede as well, so it will make more sense later on. And it used a quantitative measurement. So it looked at scenarios, kind of lived out behaviors. So it was difficult to contest. So people wouldn't say something else because they perceived it unpolite to kind of question the leader or something like that. It gave quite a detailed insight. There was a universal view of leadership, so dominant traits that came through, which is quite interesting. And the interesting thing is good leadership is associated with integrity. Well, what does that mean, integrity?
Genuine, trustworthy, or
Good character.
Yeah, integrity is kind of somebody that follows through what they are standing for. Yeah? Does that make sense? So if you are saying, we are going to do this, you hear that often with politicians. Yeah? If they kind of stand for something, I don't want this. And then he comes to power and he still says, like, I don't want this. Then like, yeah, he stands for his values. This is good. Yeah. Whilst then, so the poor Obama in America was at the moment fired basically for this notion. He didn't get his health idea that he wanted to implement, that he stood for through. So they questioned him on integrity.
He walks the talk.
Yes.
The new guy in Greece is on about this now, isn't he?
Yeah, integrity. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He's going to cut the austerity measures and all this sort of thing.
Yeah, so he will be probably as well evaluated on the integrity question. Yeah? Then you have charisma. What is that? Charisma. Yeah?
Passion for what you do. Passion for what the person is doing.
like they show it outwardly, like the charisma.
So yeah, I mean it's all there. Yeah, the keywords kind of all hint in the right direction. But what is charisma itself?
Good personality as a leader.
Yeah. It's your personality. Yeah, kind of how you make people feel. That is how it's measured. Yeah. So if somebody's charismatic, he can fascinate you or take your attention. Yeah, in. If you like old literature, yeah, the charisma theories come from the Greek. It gets really weird. Yeah? So if you read the old books from Plato, it's about friendship. It's to do with the blood theory. Yeah? You look somebody into the eyes and you are mesmerized by the charisma. Yeah? It's a radiation. So it's 2,000 years ago, maybe observations and sites weren't not that good. But fascinating classic. Yeah. But the idea is it's an attraction. Yeah. So charisma kind of takes you in. It's very difficult to ignore it. Yeah, you are focusing on your work, but at the same time, the narrative you are hearing is so fascinating, so charismatic. Yeah. So yeah, charisma was another one. Yeah, and then interpersonal ability. What is that? So there's a personal. Yeah, that is I, me and myself. Yeah. Hello. And then.
Very personal with other people.
Yes.
Skills of being with other people.
So what does it? Yeah. So being able, yeah, to put yourself into the perspective of the other people around you. Yeah. So recognizing, like, oh, okay, I see you have this problem. How can we tackle that? Yeah, you go actually, into the kind of viewpoint of the other members. Yeah.
Standing in their shoes.
Standing in their shoes. Yeah. Wonderful analogy. Yeah. So those are dominant. Yeah. No matter where you are, if you play those cards, you're on the safe side. But the problem with charisma is as well, it can go, what could charisma be misinterpreted as? If you're very charismatic.
Not taken serious.
Not being taken serious, yeah? So how would something like that express?
Usually expressions, your body language.
Body language? Yeah. It's often as well a deal breaker for certain cultures. So apparently my mother, she was a professor at the university. She's perceived very charismatic, and she always goes onto people and touches them. And sadly, she is working with Japanese universities on big international research projects. Now this is a no-go zone in Japan, and she ignores it happily. Yeah, so it's hilarious. For me, as a son standing in the distance, it's hilarious to watch, but it doesn't work. Yeah. So it's overwhelming. It seems unrespectful. Yeah, but she cannot help it. I mean, she got coached, so she can kind of help it now. But it took a long time. Yeah, so it's quite interesting. Yeah. So okay, bad example, but you may be able to think of examples there yourself. Interesting, bad leadership was as well quite general, and this is, by the way, North House, published 2013. Had to do with too much self-focus. Yeah? If you're on too much about yourself. Yeah? And dictatorial was another negative one. And asocial, what is that?
Antisocial.
Antisocial. Yeah. Yeah. So if you don't care about the team, you should try harder. I can see you have a tough time. No, but this would be already interpersonal. They would just say like, oh, come on, you didn't try hard enough. Something like that. So these behaviors are generally mostly associated with bad leadership. Quite interesting. Not sure that we can make a lot of it, but we look at refined perspectives there. Now, the 9 dimensions that the Project Globe used to look at culture is uncertainty avoidance, power distance, family collectivism, in-group collectivism, gender egalitarianism, assertiveness, future orientation, performance orientation, and humane orientation. Now let's talk about this. What does that all mean? Yeah. First of all, weaknesses with this terminology remains vague. Yeah, we come to that in a second. We have to make sense of this stuff. Those are characteristics that we have to access. So is that true or not? And then characteristics are defined without taking situational aspects into consideration. I took you already on that journey. You remember the drama that we had to experience. Did you remember? The ethical dilemma? Yeah. So situation, contextual matters make things, put it into perspective. Yeah? Okay, so wait a minute, have I broken this down? No. What is uncertainty avoidance? What is one spectrum? How do you feel about uncertainty?
I think as a workforce, you require an answer or a decision from your managers or leaders. So if I was coming to you and what should we do with this, what should we do with that, I expect to get an answer, whether it's right or wrong. I expect to get an answer rather than I'm not sure, or can you leave it with me, that type of thing.
Okay. So this is one stance, where you would probably not like uncertainty. You want to have rough idea or answers. Yeah. So here we would be on the spectrum of not liking uncertainty. Yeah. This is one spectrum. What is on the other spectrum? What is the opposite? it's pro uncertainty, yeah, or you wouldn't avoid uncertainty, right? So what could that be like?
New thought processes. You think
so now something uncertain happens as a team. How do you react? Yay, new challenge! Finally, got boring a little bit. So that is like pro uncertainty. Yeah. So those are kind of the borders. How is it for you? How do you feel? So you said like you kind of expect, yeah, from your leadership orientation. So you get a little bit direction. Yeah. You may accept a little bit uncertainty, but the rough direction should be clear. Yeah. What about you? What are your preferences?
I think it's dangerous to have wholly be that way. If it's
Pardon?
too much that way, it's really dangerous.
So if it's too determined, yeah.
If it's balanced too much in that favour, it's dangerous. Not good.
Okay. So you are more in favor of like creating the opportunism, yeah? Also like basically saying like, okay, this is roughly where we are going, but we take it depending on what comes, yeah? So it gives the project manager more playground, but the team is as well like, okay, I can't really prepare. If something else happens, I may have to do it completely different. Yeah, does that make sense?
Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, isn't it really?
Yeah, okay, so this is already trying to minimize the uncertainty that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You bring in risk management, so you've always got the, you know, what if this happens, what if that happens, what if that happens.
Yeah, so this is a strategy, you're absolutely right, to manage and mitigate uncertainty. And you will still have problems that are uncertain. So uncertainty has as well different characteristics. The things you really don't know and the things that are uncertain to happen, but you do know they exist. Yeah, but that is this is now risk management. But in culture, well, what do you prefer? How is it? In Germany, we have standardized everything, so there's very little surprise. If there is a surprise, don't worry, we have another standard for this. Yeah, so that is German life. So we have kind of ordered it. It's a little bit constrictive, so you know, like it's not that flexible, but there's certainty. How does it think maybe of your culture or what you associate with your nation or something like that? How is it there? I'll give you the contrary example. South Africa, we don't look, we don't know there's a problem. No, it's a safe bet. If it hits you, okay, there's a problem. But it can emerge. So you deal with it when it comes. Until then, we don't really look so closely. It's a little bit overestimating here the problem, but one of the projects that I'm still proud on that I worked on, it was we won a prize for waste minimization project, and as PepsiCo Research and Development Unit, we contributed with Signum on a wonderful EDF power plant. Now this was to have a closed water loop pressure cycle for the cooling of a nuclear power plant. Now, when I read the proposal, my question was, so we close it even more? Wait a minute, cooling systems are always closed. I didn't know that you can actually design it as an open system, so this was still an open system. The ocean water came in, cooled the power plant, and then ran out again. Yes, it's not good, quite frankly. So anyway, long story short, they hadn't measured for it, so there were no problems. So of course we closed it then up, and then it was safe. But what I learned is they hadn't had risk assessment in place. Yeah? So they took uncertainty as it came, and then they weren't really up to date with good practice. Yeah. Actually, to be fair, in apartheid they were kind of locked away. They didn't really talk a lot to other countries, to be fair. But yeah. So what is the approach? What do you think? Any other preferences? Well, one more example, then I move on. Uncertainty avoidance. What do you like it exciting, or do you like it quite organized and planned?
You have to have a bit of both, don't you, really?
Okay, the mix. This is why I'm here, exactly. In the UK, I always think like, yeah, we like a little bit standards, but we like this as well, the opportunities that come along. Let's try it out and then see what maybe comes along. Yeah. This is at least my kind of emotional response here. Yeah. So I buy into your plea. Yeah.
So
I think we want something different, but when we get the opportunity, we generally say, "I'd rather just have it the way it was."
Yeah, this is a danger. Yeah, so sometimes uncertainty looks very risky, and you say, "Oh, maybe we should push it more in that direction again and go the standardized way." Yeah. Okay, so very good. Then we have power distance. What does that mean, power distance? What could that be, power distance? What is power in terms of culture and leadership? What do you think is meant by that?
Is it arm's length? Sort of. Or too close?
So yeah, well, what does that mean?
Sometimes you find it with staff where you get too close to them, and then when there's maybe a little bit of a problem or a conflict or whatever, the personal boundaries have possibly overlapped. That could be one area.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So you put it now in a workforce setting, and you kind of imply there a hierarchy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have a team member that is a team member, and you have authority in form of a role of a manager, maybe that is a leader.
Just keep it that distance ever so slightly.
Yeah. So it's a decision-making fragmentation. Yeah. So you can provide information, but you should accept the authority of the leadership. Yeah. So power distance has to do with how willing you are accept to kind of take decisions from somebody else on your behalf. Yeah, that impact on you. So for example, yeah, when I grew up in my family, I took the decisions, yeah, until it got too bad. So when I was little, my mom gave me as a baby food. Yeah, I would eat it unquestionably. I was quite happy. Until the day, I didn't really talk either, yeah, because everything was fine. And then my parents got really worried about that. Robert, say something. Yeah? Even when I was still was 3 years, I hadn't spoken yet a word. Yeah? And we were sitting on the dinner table, and my mom served soup. Yeah? And as the soup was served, my parents started chatting and complained again that I didn't talk. I took my spoon of soup in the mouth and like bursted the soup out and shouted, "Damn it, the soup is too hot!" My parents are in shock. Oh my gosh, he's speaking, he can talk. Yeah, so yeah, it's a dilemma. Yeah, so and then my parents asked, "Why have you never said something?" Until now, everything has been fine, but this unacceptable. Yeah, so yeah. No, it's a joke. Don't worry. Yeah, but it brings out the issue. Yeah, so in a way, power distance is an interesting one. Yeah? So we take a lot of things for granted until we question them. Yeah? So in some, yeah, so for example, if you look at the national indicators from Hofstede, you will see UK and Germany very apparently aggressive towards power distance. Yeah? So if you don't like what your leader says, you initially take it. Yeah? So you follow the authority, but if it's very terrible, then there's demonstration, yeah? or sit down. I don't know. Yeah? But there's as well a very sharp reaction. Whilst Italy, how is it in Italy?
It's quite similar.
Really?
Yeah.
Authority is accepted?
Yeah, it's quite similar.
You would say so, okay. According to Hofstede, Italy is a lot more negotiation-oriented, conflict-seeking. Is that true?
For my personal experience, it was more like you told, with an authority that decide for everybody.
Okay, but would you negotiate?
In the north of Italy, maybe that is an average.
Would you negotiate? I suppose you know power distance is really like in Germany we would do it. It's okay. Yeah, I do it. Huh? And as well, arguably in England, yeah, you would go and do it. You would maybe do something else, yeah, but you would not confront. But Italy has this, at least in the cultural dimension, is supposed to negotiate. Now, can we not do it this way? Yeah, or something like that. So there is a negotiation level.
Yeah, sometimes there is also the negotiation. Yeah. It happens more in other levels.
Okay.
In maybe some high levels, the negotiation. It's not the first priority is the authority.
Okay, but this can be at each level. Yeah, so in a project, this could be as well when the team leader says you should do it this way. So you say like, no, wait a minute, I want to do it this way.
Could depend how So the individuals involved, you know, if you're new to the team,
Yeah.
depends on your own personal characteristics.
Yeah, you're spot on.
All of
Yeah.
those things, yeah, because I think Andrew mentioned everybody's individual, everybody's different.
Yeah. So this is always true. Yeah. And what should be said as well to Globe and Hofstede is those are kind of national trends. So there's a dominance of perceived preferences, and you will still find the exceptions. Yeah? So this is something you should watch with care. This is not generally true for everybody. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
I think when you were younger, you maybe went along with more things. As you get older, learn a bit more knowledge, maybe not care as much.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah, you question a little
Yeah.
bit more. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so this was power distance. How about family collectivism? We had that question before. Like your little daughter or son has a play of his life, the main act in the school theater. All the parents are coming. You're at work. We have just got this extra order in. It has to be done tonight. Can you do it? This is a big question. Do you say, no, I cannot do it. Tonight is the night of my little child. I cannot miss this. Or is it the other way around? Little child, I'm really sorry. Something came up. I do. Which one is it? I mean, I'm polarizing. I don't think it would be. I hope it wouldn't be that drastic.
Yeah,
But
who's got little children?
oh, so imagine you have little children. Sorry. Which one would it be?
I'd like to say it was
One.
one. I'd like to say I'd like to say it was one.
You might say
I
it
would
was
go, but I think certain pressure sometimes take that over. You can,
That's
like
even
say to your
harder.
wife, isn't it? It's like I'm going there. Well, you can go if you want. You know, it's like you know what she means. It's like don't go. But
Okay, so the hidden, you say it's not dominant. That they are not as cruel as.
your boss is, if your boss says like I really need this done tonight, and you say I've got to go, you say, well, I understand. He doesn't understand. He doesn't. You know, he doesn't want to know. But
What are the consequences
Okay,
of
so
not? What are the consequences of not getting the delivery out? Could you come in early in the morning and still get the delivery out? Oh, said it has to go tonight. Could you come back to work?
Now this is a question. So if you consider this, it shows it's not a dominant, harsh culture. Yeah, that kind of is low on family collectivism. So it's somewhere in the middle probably, but it's leaning slightly towards being not very dominant, the family collectivism. Yeah, so at least if that is kind of the undertone. Whilst maybe in a very family collectivism dominant culture, you would see the other way around. Oh, this is really bad. Is there a possibility you can do this later after the school play? You know, you would like start to negotiate how you can do this important thing anyway. Yeah, but at a later stage, you would kind of bend work to fit the family life. Yeah. Whilst in South Africa, you walk out of this door, you don't have to come back. Yeah. No, I'm joking. Again, this is maybe that's not true, but anyway, yeah. So they're extremes again. Yeah.
That applies on some of the contracts as well, because some of the students I know have sort of 0-hour contracts, working in pubs, working in fast food, and some of the managers can be quite dictatorial like that.
Yeah.
You know, can you work or can you stay back till 1 AM? No. If you don't work, don't come back.
You have already measured actually. You have given us already tools how this is measured. So if you're on a contract basis like that, 0 hour to get the work done, this is already kind of putting you in a bad situation. The contract is already framing you to have a weak culture in family collectivism. Yeah? Otherwise, you have set hours, and you have a flexible working. Now this is extremely family friendly. Yeah, flexible working. You can like family prioritized. You create your work around it to kind of fulfill the work. Yeah? So this is exactly how we can start to measure it. Yeah? What about in group collectivism?
It's like the same as family, but with friends, isn't it, almost?
Yeah. Do you buy into that? The most heroic theme we have here, strip on. Yeah. This is of course when when one team shoots a goal and you're like, Newcastle, yes, finally.
Adopted family.
No, sorry, we were at in-group collectivism.
So it's adopted family, we'll say.
Oh, I see. Oh, sorry. So it goes a lot further. So this is maybe merged even, yeah. So this is the extended family, yeah. So that is then of course quite intense, yeah.
Is it where like if you were doing the lecture and you had to go to the school play, I would say I'll cover your class tonight so you can go, and then you can cover my class some other time in the future. Would that help or not?
So we are saying it's a family collectivism,
in
yeah.
group.
So in a family, you could, for example, look after you that way. So those would be mechanisms that you can use in a culture, yeah, to basically allow this family dominance. As a theme, it would be then important, yeah. And in group collectivism is a little bit different. What do you think it is? So we had already the football theme. What is in group collectivism? What do you think that stands for?
You're on the same team together.
Working as a team?
Yeah.
It's
It
if
was,
one,
yeah.
if one of you says, I need to go tonight, the rest will cover it.
Okay.
Or we'll like group together and say why.
It's a bit like what we've done that before Christmas when we're putting in groups
Yeah.
to help each other.
Is it how the rest of the, if you're working in a group, how the rest of the group will see you not being able to take part in something? They're like the
Yeah. Okay,
family,
but you
peer pressure.
so in a way you're still individualizing out. So in a group collectivism is you are born in Newcastle, so you must be a Newcastle United fan. Yeah, it's a group pressure. Yeah, it's basically a grouping because you are associated with something. Yeah. So, for example, we are now at Northumbria MSc Project Management. So we are the project management, MSc Construction Project Management cohort. Yeah. So this would be the group. And now, if you all agree with me, yeah, and I agree with you, then we have kind of a in-group collectivism going on. There's kind of positive trends, we probably agree a lot, where we get very quickly through work, but it can have as well negative aspects. Actually, I'm running out of time, Jonah. Yes. Okay, we in the seminar we stop at the collectivism and we do the questionnaire to figure out where we sit. Yeah, so you will have to fill it out and we conclude on that. There will be a discussion based on that. Any questions so far? So quite heavy with the levels, but we got through it. And then you will see by the questions, you will get a feeling for the different fields. Yeah? Okay, if you don't have any questions, then enjoy your lunch break. And I see you afterwards. Thank you very much.